I remember the air that morning, thin, brittle, carrying the kind of silence that made even the birds stay quiet. Outpost 7 wasn't much, just a scattering of prefabs and a comm tower, but it was ours, and we'd held it against storms, raiders, and worse. Nothing prepared me for the shadow that stretched across the perimeter that day. At first, I thought it was a cloud. But clouds don't walk. The Predator Alpha emerged from the ridge, its massive shoulders rolling with every deliberate step. I froze, rifle trembling in my hands. I had seen recordings of these creatures before, hunters that could bring down armored vehicles with a single strike. And yet, in person, it was something else entirely. The ground shuddered beneath its weight. Its eyes glowed faintly, not like the cold lights of a machine but like embers fanned by the wind. Every instinct I had screamed to fire, to run, to do anything but stand there. But then I saw them, 3 small shapes pressed against its legs. Cubs. Their fur was mottled, their movements clumsy, not yet dangerous, but still undeniably part of the monster towering above them. I expected the Alpha to lunge, to tear through our defenses and claim its kill. Instead, it stopped short, lowering its head so slowly it seemed almost reverent. With one sweep of its muzzle, it nudged the cubs forward. The little ones stumbled into the dust, ears flat, eyes wide with fear. And the Alpha, it stepped back. Its gaze locked on me, piercing through my visor, and I swear there was something ancient in it, something I couldn't name. Not anger. Not hunger. Something closer to hope, or maybe desperation. I didn't lower my rifle. But I didn't fire either. Because in that silent exchange, I realized the galaxy had just shifted. And I was standing at the fault line. They handed the cubs to me because no one else would touch them. Even wrapped in containment blankets, their claws tore through the fabric like it was paper. Their bodies were hot to the touch, radiating a heat that steamed against the chill air of the outpost. I carried them awkwardly, one under each arm and the third clinging to my chest, and I could feel the weight of every stare from the people around me. No one said it out loud, but the fear was there in their eyes, fear of the cubs, and fear of me for agreeing to take them in. Inside the barracks, I set them down. They paced restlessly, shoulders low, making soft rumbling noises I couldn't decipher. Every time I moved too quickly, they flinched back, but not from fear of me, from fear of the emptiness, the strangeness of being here without their Alpha. It dawned on me that they weren't dangerous right now. They were just scared children. The arguments began immediately. Some of the settlers shouted that we should kill them before they grew too large, too strong. Others demanded we push them back outside the perimeter and let the Alpha take them again. But I stood my ground. If the Alpha had wanted us dead, we'd be bones already. It had chosen to leave its young with us, and that meant something. That night, I found myself feeding them with strips of dried meat, their small jaws snapping hungrily before they curled up together on a pile of blankets. One of them pressed its head against my knee and made a sound so low it was almost like a purr. I sat there, rifle at my side, staring at these impossible creatures. Somehow, against all reason, I knew they weren't just mine to protect. They were my responsibility. Word spread faster than I expected. Within days, ships from nearby colonies descended on us, their banners sharp against the sky, their emissaries cloaked in colors that reeked of authority. They didn't come with weapons drawn, not yet, but with words that cut sharper than steel. They called us reckless, dangerous, fools who dared to cradle the cubs of a monster. In their eyes, we had broken a law older than treaties, a law of survival. No one allied with predators. No one gave them sanctuary. To them, what we were doing was suicide. The council gathered in the meeting hall, voices rising and breaking like waves on stone. Some of our own sided with the emissaries. They argued that we couldn't risk the colony for a gesture we barely understood. That we should hand the cubs over, prove we weren't insane enough to try taming death itself. But I couldn't forget the Alpha's eyes when it left its young with me. That wasn't an accident. It was a choice. And choices like that reshaped entire civilizations. When my turn came to speak, I said no. The cubs would stay. If others wanted to leave the colony, they could, but I wouldn't betray the trust placed in us. My words didn't win applause. They only deepened the silence, heavy and dangerous. That night, while the emissaries slept uneasily in their quarters, I stood outside watching the ridge. Dozens of eyes glowed in the darkness, reflecting the firelight from our torches. The pack was out there, silent and waiting. Not attacking. Not retreating. Watching. I realized then what terrified the emissaries most. It wasn't just the cubs. It was the question hanging in the air. What if humanity could stand with the predators, not against them? What if we belonged in the same pack? The cubs grew faster than anyone predicted. In weeks, their bodies thickened with muscle, their fangs sharpened, and their eyes gleamed with an intelligence that unsettled even me. They knocked over tables with a careless flick of their tails, shredded doors just by pushing through them, and once nearly electrocuted themselves chewing on the generator cables. Every day was chaos, but somehow, within that chaos, something new was taking shape. They weren't just learning how to survive, they were watching us. They mimicked our gestures, our sounds, even our habits. I remember catching one of them crouched at the mess hall table, clumsily trying to copy the way a little girl held her spoon. It looked ridiculous, monstrous claws fumbling at human tools, but when the girl laughed, the cub gave a low, rumbling sound that echoed her giggle. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't human. But it was close enough to make the hair rise on my arms. I started teaching them words. Not many, just simple ones. Friend. Safe. Home. They listened, repeating sounds in guttural tones, struggling to shape syllables around teeth made for tearing flesh. But they tried. And when one of them finally rasped out home, my throat tightened. Still, accidents happened. One child was scratched badly during play. Livestock disappeared. Fights broke out in the colony over whether we'd doomed ourselves by keeping them. And yet, when the cubs curled against our children at night, purring like thunder, or when they stood between us and the darkness beyond the perimeter, snarling at shadows, people hesitated to call them monsters. I began to see it in their eyes, the change. They weren't just predators anymore. They were trying to be something else. Something new. And terrifying as it was, they were learning it from us. The attack came at dusk. The horizon filled with the lights of descending ships, their hulls etched in the sigils of the coalition. They came not as emissaries this time, but as executioners. Over the comms, their ultimatum was clear: surrender the cubs or burn with them. Our council scrambled, shouting over one another, but there was no time for debate. By the time the first barrage struck the outer wall, the choice was already made. We would not give them up. The colony was chaos. Families rushed to shelters while soldiers took up positions along the barricades. I found the cubs waiting for me near the center square, their hackles raised, their eyes burning like embers. They didn't cower. They didn't flee. They stood beside me, snarling at the skies. When the first wave of troops stormed through the smoke, the cubs leapt with a fury I had only seen in nightmares. Armor tore, weapons clattered, screams cut short. But it wasn't mindless slaughter. They fought with us, not against us, shielding the weak, covering our flanks, roaring in unison with our battle cries. I fought too, rifle blazing, back pressed against claw and fang as the night turned red. And for the first time, I realized these cubs were no longer ours to protect, they were our protectors. When one fell under plasma fire, another threw itself over me, taking the shot that would have ended my life. The battle raged until dawn. The coalition had numbers, but they weren't ready for us, humans and predators fighting as one. By sunrise, their ships fled the skies, leaving only fire and ruin behind. We buried our dead, but the truth could not be buried. The galaxy had witnessed something it had never imagined possible. Humanity hadn't been devoured by predators. We had become their pack. The battlefield still smoked when the Alpha returned. Its massive silhouette rose through the haze, larger than life, each step shaking the broken earth. I felt every muscle in my body tense, half expecting it to come for blood now that its young had been dragged into our war. The colony fell silent, weapons raised but trembling. Even after all we had endured, even after the cubs fought beside us, the Alpha was something else entirely, a living force of nature. The cubs saw it first. They yowled and bounded forward, their movements no longer the awkward stumbling of youth but the confident strides of hunters nearly grown. The Alpha lowered its head to greet them, brushing its muzzle across their fur. But then something strange happened. Instead of staying at its side, the cubs turned back. They circled me, pressing their bodies against mine, growling softly as though to say, "This is home now, Star." The Alpha's eyes fixed on me. There was no malice in them, only a weight I could barely stand under, like the gaze of a storm deciding whether to break. My finger twitched against my rifle, though I knew it would be useless if it came to a fight. Then, with a sound like rolling thunder, the Alpha dropped to one knee. It wasn't submission, I could feel that in my bones, it was recognition. An acknowledgement. The colony gasped, some falling to their knees, others simply staring in disbelief. For the first time, the great predator Alpha bowed not to its kind, but to a human. When it rose again, it didn't leave. The pack that had once circled our walls now entered them, padding quietly through the ruins, watching us with new eyes. We weren't prey anymore. We were kin. Years have passed since that first impossible day, and the colony is no longer the fragile outpost it once was. Where there had been walls built from fear, now there are wide paths patrolled by shadows that walk on 4 legs and 2. The cubs have grown into titans, each taller than a transport, their fangs like blades, their claws capable of rending steel. But when they move among us, they lower their heads so children can climb their backs, so farmers can brush past without fear. They are predators still, but predators who have chosen to guard rather than consume. The galaxy has not forgotten. Our enemies watch with unease, whispering of the alliance no one thought possible. Emissaries come draped in silks and armor, voices trembling as they ask for treaties, for assurances, for explanations of how humanity tamed the untamable. We don't tell them the truth, because it cannot be put into words. We didn't tame the predators. We became their family. At night, when the twin moons rise, I sometimes sit outside the barracks with one of the great beasts beside me. Its eyes glow like coals, scanning the horizon, yet when it lowers its head into my lap, I can feel the same warmth I felt years ago when a cub whimpered against my chest. That sound, the low rumble of contentment, reminds me how fragile the beginning had been, how easily we could have turned away. Now, we are no longer just a human colony. We are a pack, bound not by blood, but by choice. And in a galaxy that has always divided prey from predator, that choice has rewritten everything. Humanity is no longer alone. We are hunters and guardians both. And the galaxy will never dare forget it.